Hey everyone, this is Christian Heimel, host of Caught Listening. Thanks for listening to the following podcast on Public House Media.
Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy, and you probably are too. I'm Lindsay. I'm here today with Teegan, and we are here to talk nerdy to you. We, as listeners actually know, I tend to listen to a lot more media than the normal person, I suppose. I listen to a lot of things and not necessarily get to watch very much because of where I work. I try to make sure it's just something that's audibly appealing. But lately I've noticed that there's a big difference between people that have the ability to hear different voices, and specifically voice actors, knowing that a voice actor is playing this particular character. And it's kind of like a phenomenon to me. I haven't ever really thought about it before, but recently we've decided to start talking about voice actors, and I thought we should do an appreciation episode where we just kind of bow down and say look, we are not worthy. You guys are amazing, guys and girls, of course. So this episode we are going to talk about our appreciation of voice actors. And first, Tegan's going to do Gaming Corner.
Yep. For this week, as y'all might have seen with the post on Tuesday, I've actually kind of moved to doing it Tuesday just to kind of give me a little time to regroup from the weekend, because my weekends are usually kind of just a little hectic. So in case y'all haven't noticed, I've started doing that on Tuesday now. But on the Tuesday post, I mainly had posted about RoboCop, but I wanted to post it because it was more of an idea of corporate corruption and just corporations just kind of putting profit above everything else. And most corporations probably aren't at the level of OCP, but I think that there are definitely a lot of corporations out there that are like that. And one of them I did cover, I think, a few episodes ago. It feels like it's just recently. Gamestop. I know that they were really trying to fight a lot of closure orders with the pandemic and not really providing their own employees with, proper sanitation products during a pandemic. That's not very good. But with, obviously with a lot of unrest that's been happening lately, some stores are preemptively, in general, not GameStop, but some stores are, preemptively closing down because they want to protect their employees and, make sure that they're safe because, that's kind of important. Your employees help run your business. That's how you make your money. Seems fairly logical and simple, right? But GameStop, unfortunately, has not wanted to close any stores. They actually want their stores to remain open, and their solution for dealing, if anybody comes around trying to riot or trying to loot, their solution is to lock the doors, most of which are glass doors, which right. Last I checked my notes are breakable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, oh, just lock yourselves in the back. Well, is the back door even sturdy? I know some employees have said that their back doors are actually hollow, so they're very easy to break in. I know a couple of my inside doors here in my house are hollow, and they are almost fragile in a way. And so it's that's not going to stop anything. It's is there any kind of route of escape or anything? I almost doubt it in some cases. So, that number one is just incredibly irresponsible for placing your employees on the front line again, after the whole pandemic. And then they have put together this gamer fund to help the GameStop employees that have been affected by, the furloughing. They, want to, I guess, just put together some funds to help them out, which sounds good on its surface, right? Trying to help people out. But the CEO is asking employees to donate their own money and then, not only that, which I mean, if employees want to donate their own money, that's fine. That's on them. Although I have heard of some people or some districts or some stores where they have some mandatory donations, like at least I think $25 per pay period, I heard, which that's kind of, very shady. And the CEO did make a donation of $2,000. And it's like, okay, so how much are you being paid per year? What exactly is your salary? I'm pretty sure, like, you earn $2,000 in, like, a day. Probably, like...
Right.
That's really... that's such a low amount. And it's kind of like this whole... I know I've talked about this before on my personal page and stuff about like performative allyship and putting things out there for the appearance that you are a good person. But it's like, if you just put that out there to appear to be a good person, and you're not actually really following through with it, you're not doing anything to demonstrate that you are in real life, it's like, like, how good of a person are you really? Like, I understand this is a business, you want to make money, but, the times that we live in with the pandemic, with everything that's going on, you have to be more understanding of this. There are times where money is not the most important thing. And George, his name is George Sherman. It's like, George, you are swimming in money already. You do not, you can afford to give more to that fund than just $2,000. So if somehow this reaches George Sherman, I dare you, George, go donate a quarter of your salary. That will help your employees a lot more than just, we'll just lock the glass doors and lock yourself in the back.
Yeah, it kind of scares me, honestly, because in this whole, past couple of months, there's been so many companies that, like, really did their employees well, and then the ones that did badly did really badly. I mean, it's just, like, scary to me. Like, I feel very blessed that I worked where I did, and continued to work, but I also didn't, because of the risk of what we all just put ourselves through. So I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that is a kind of the dark side, I think, to a lot of corporations, is there's a lot of shady stuff going on behind the scenes that, we as consumers don't really get a chance to see a whole lot of. And, so, I want to try to bring light to that, certainly not all corporations are going to be perfect and good, but there are some out there that are definitely not good and that are definitely pushing the limits of acceptability and what they can get away with.
Right.
So,
okay.
On to voice acting.
Voice actors.
Voice acting, I think, is one of those things that I think kind of gets tossed by the wayside as, not a legitimate form of acting or art, or, it's less important, because I think there's this idea that, animation is for kids, or, it's not for adults or anything, the whole idea that, it's just once you grow up, you grow out of cartoons, which I think is just a little ridiculous, especially considering that, all of the effort that goes into voice acting and how little many of them are compensated. It's, it's kind of crazy, like, all the credit that they don't seem to get.
Yeah. So you probably know a lot more about, like, anime, and certain kinds of voice acting that I wouldn't know about. I'm kind of interested to find out exactly how that goes with how much is being compensated in there, because I know the big names, and it's interesting to me too, because of course I think voice acting is like almost cooler than regular acting, because you don't have your whole body to act. You have to depend on whatever. I was listening to an interview of Mel Blanc back when he was talking with David Letterman, and I mean, they both looked, the picture was super grainy, so it was very old. And if listeners don't know who that is, he is credited as like the man of 1,000 voices. So he had the voice of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, a lot of the classics, basically. And he, was the very beginning of cartoons, back when cartoons were done frame by frame with Warner Brothers, and just an amazing voice actor. And the way he explained it is, they would come to him with a sketch of what the character looks like, and then parts of a storyboard, and basically what was going to be going on in the bit, and then he would come up with the voice, and that is like unreal. Can you imagine having the imagination, the power to create a voice like that? I mean, and he did say like none of his voices were the same, but some of them sounded a little similar. He talks about different dialects and different things that he would assume or instigate that a character would sound like, and it was just like really cool to think of that. But then the creative process behind deciding what a character would sound like, I'm just blown away by that kind of concept. And it's not a new concept, obviously. It's been going on for quite some time, but there are actors that are out there right now that we have even sort of touched upon on other episodes, and I've never even thought of them as a voice actor so much as like just the freedom and the creative license that some of these people have is so amazing. Okay, so, sorry, tangent. Again, with the voice actors, we are not worthy. I'm in awe. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. Voice acting is real acting all the time, no matter what.
And I mean, like, as far as, voice acting in comparison to, live action acting in general, like, you have to convey a whole lot in just your voice, as opposed to, in live action, you can convey with your face, your emotions, your, right. Your body language and things like that. In voice acting, you only get your voice. Mm-hmm. And, voice actors really have to pour themselves into that role in order to be effective. If you've ever seen any recordings of Mark Hamill doing the voice of the Joker, he actually physically gets into it.
Yes. So you've always talked about Mark Hamill whenever we discuss voice acting, or whenever we kind of skirt around things, that he is your paramount Joker voice.
Yes.
And he is that way for a lot of people. The gentleman who actually does Batman opposite him is known as the Batman voice as well.
Kevin Conroy.
Seeing them in studio and mm-hmm. watching Mark Hamill crouch and laugh and wring his hands and just be a completely different person than what I'm used to is so incredibly insane
and inspiring. Insane, inspiring,
insanely awesome,
amazing. I guess.
What's so funny about it is I wasn't expecting it. I tried to listen to a few YouTube videos of different actors doing their iconic roles. So mm-hmm. I did definitely touch on Mark Hamill and a couple other voice actors, and I thought what was really interesting about Mark Hamill is, they have all these extra little bits that they do. There's this little side character in this cartoon, or this other character, and there were a couple of hero-esque characters that I heard him do the voice of, and I was like, oh yeah, that does actually kind of sound like Mark Hamill. That actually kind of sounds like Luke Skywalker. Okay, and so I knew it was Mark Hamill, but there was a moment where right around when we were starting to talk about him as a voice actor and Joker, and then he plays a character in the Dark Crystal Netflix show Age of Resistance, and he plays spoiler alert, guys, he's Chamberlain. I'm pretty sure. Maybe he's the scientist. I think maybe he's the scientist. Don't quote me. He's somebody. But having his voice playing a what are they called in Dark Crystal? I'm so excited that I'm forgetting the name of it. And I'm going to be like absolutely reamed by my friends who listen to this because they're going to be like, how could you forget what those are called? But I'm just so excited about Mark Hamill, I can't remember. But anyway, he plays one of them, and I saw his name come up in the list, and I'm like, oh, Mark Hamill does that voice? That's crazy. I would never even think of that. But now that I've seen him like completely transform as Joker, I'm like, oh okay.
Yeah.
I can see it now. Because there's such like and then seeing like the split screen too of what his voice, him in studio, and then what the actual animation was doing while saying that was like, stop it. Like, petrifying.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of almost a dissonance sometimes when we associate a certain like name or an actor with a certain voice or in a certain role, and then we hear them in something else. Because, obviously, my very first association with Mark Hamill was Luke Skywalker. And for the longest time, I didn't even realize that the person who did the voice of the Joker in Batman the Animated Series, when I first watched it when I was like, 11, 12, I didn't even realize it was the same person. And then when I found out, I'm like, there's like this just dissonance in your mind. Like, wait, what? I don't understand. And then he also does the voice of Fire Lord Ozai in Avatar: The Last Airbender. So it's just like mind blown.
Yeah, no, and what's really funny to me too is like there are people who have the voices completely figured out. Like my boyfriend's one of them. He can like hear someone talk for 5 seconds and he'll be like, oh, that's so and so, and I'll be like, stop it. But he'll be right, and I'll be like,
yeah,
how do you? Because I'm so used to listening to these voices, and the sign of a good voice actor, of course, is being able to believe that they are that character and not anyone else. So I'm so used to thinking, okay, these people are, this person is obviously the voice of Zeb Borrelios. Like it couldn't possibly be anybody else. Or this person is obviously this character, and I don't even associate them with the voice actor that is doing it. But to find out that they have something in their voice that's so very much that I don't even know what it is. I can't hear it. I can't hear what's in their voice that makes it obvious that it's that person. But knowing that they do have something in their voice that makes it obvious that it's them is pretty darn awesome.
Yeah,
I think that's what really like throws me the most.
Yeah, I'm a bit voice blind. I don't always hear these similarities. There are a couple of voice actors that I can usually pick out. My husband is usually first to the bat on this particular one, but I can usually pick it up too, and that's Phil Lamar, because he is in so much. And he's Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern in Justice League cartoons. He's done Jon Stewart in quite a few different things. He does in video games. He's done Kotal Khan for Mortal Kombat. He's done so many different and varied things, but it's like when you hear that voice, it is a very distinct, deep voice, and it's like, it's almost like Keith David, where it's like I know this voice, even if I don't always necessarily immediately recognize it. I'm like, I know this voice. This voice is familiar.
Wasn't he in Futurama too, or?
I believe he was. He was also in Mad TV, which is extra interesting to watch him on there and know that that's Jon Stewart.
Oh, you know what? I think now I can put a face to the name. That makes sense. Okay, because I knew I recognized the name, but I wasn't because I didn't watch Samurai Jack, so I can't even.
Yeah.
But that's what's so interesting to me too, is like you think of these different characters and these different voices, and not necessarily the actor that goes behind them. And it blows my mind. There are people who have been in the industry for like the dawn of time. She does the voice of a bunch of characters in Futurama and The Simpsons, and she was Animaniacs. Oh, Tress McNeil? Does that sound right?
It sounds familiar, yeah.
Oh, but okay, so like I said, I tried to do a little bit of research, and I was like YouTubing as many people as I possibly could. And it's interesting to me to like have the characters be so very different from each other. And have gone so far back in time, but there's a few things in her repertoire that are like a raspy, robust, like the cafeteria lady with the cigarette hanging out of her mouth. That like iconic character.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like I always kind of thought that was like a person off the street who they were like, oh, you are obviously going to have a nasty, raspy voice because you look the part, I guess. And she doesn't. So it's just so weird to me to like have this completely other doorway be opened where people are acting with their voices and only their voices and are able to convey this character completely different than what they look like and how they are. I mean, like Alan Tudyk and King Candy. He was actually told to emulate a character from Alice in Wonderland when he was getting ready to play King Candy with the lisping and the eccentricities. And it's just like super cool to know that like that kind of thing happens behind the scenes, I guess. Like it's I think it's harder. I think it's harder to act with just your voice than it is to do anything else. You know, like Alan Tudyk also did motion capture for the character he played in I, Robot. And that was part of Disney's like understanding of his ability to play the robot that he plays in Rogue One. Just like super cool. And I'm like seriously going to like geek jail because I can't remember anything's name or anything. But there's also video of him doing the voice for the chicken in Moana, and he literally like does the voice, and then 5 seconds later he's like, I went to Juilliard, like he's doing the voice of a chicken. Like it's just so perfectly insane how talented he is. And then just all of these people, like what are we going to do when they're no longer around to do these voices?
I mean, that's always been the thing about like say Mark Hamill, because, you know, Mark's definitely been, you know, taking some steps back. He does still come on and do Joker voices for different projects now and then, but he's definitely taken a bit of a step back, you know, in doing it, because it is kind of an intense voice to have to do and to keep up for, you know, the whole performance, you know, and so I mean, eventually, you know, he is going to retire completely, and I mean, obviously, you know, one day he will pass away. He's not immortal, unfortunately, so he's not going to be here forever. So, you know, there's going to be somebody that's going to have to take over for him. I know John DiMaggio has done Joker voices in different things. He actually did the Joker voice for Under the Red Hood, which is like, you know, my favorite animated Batman movie ever. And so he did a fantastic job. And I mean, he emulates a lot of what Mark Hamill does with the voice. So that way it's not quite him, and you can kind of tell it's not quite him, but it's enough of the echoes of him where it's still comfortable. It's still that familiar feeling with that voice, and to emulate a voice that is so iconic like that and to do it so well, I think is just an incredible job in and of itself.
Well, right. And, you know, you want to be consistent and respectful of someone who's done the voice prior to you. I feel like, especially with, there was some Jim Henson actors and actresses for the original Dark Crystal who are no longer with us, who, like the original voice of Aughra, she has passed away, so wasn't able to do Age of Resistance, but the actress they got to play her now is doing such a phenomenal job that I seamlessly thought that that person lived forever and was still doing the voice because it was spot on. And the idea of being respectful to the voice and trying to emulate it, it's almost sort of like a different kind of art form in that sense, where you're not being disrespectful of that voice, but also trying to make it your own as well.
Just to kind of ease the transition from...
Yeah, not even to say so much about, like, Will Smith had said he wasn't trying to, like, show up Robin Williams or do a better job than Robin Williams when they did the live action, and there was a lot of debate as to how that was going to go with his skin color and all the other stuff that happened with making a blue genie versus a not so blue genie. And what was really interesting to me was that you could definitely tell it was Will Smith. It was not Will Smith pretending to be Robin Williams. It was not Will Smith pretending to be Genie. It was definitely Will Smith, and Robin Williams is definitely Robin Williams. But the respect that took of taking that character and saying, okay, I don't want to degrade that in any way is completely different. There's also the actor who did the voice of Genie in the movie in between Prince of Thieves and Aladdin in the animated. And he did the Genie's voice, and that seamlessness, trying to make that sound like Robin Williams, is completely different too.
Yeah. So I think it's a delicate balance sometimes because, obviously as a voice actor, you want to kind of make your own mark and, do your own thing. But when it's a well-established, character who has had, a long following and who, has a voice actor who is kind of more famous for doing the role, there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that. Jason O'Mara has likewise been taking over the role of Batman and Bruce Wayne from Kevin Conroy in a lot of different projects lately, kind of saving Conroy's voice because, when you get older, your voice does change a little bit. You get more strain on your vocal cords, and it's, harder and more difficult to keep that up. And so, but Jason O'Mara has been doing a great job with, Batman, even though I love Kevin Conroy, I love Mark Hamill, Jason and John have been doing a fantastic job, transitioning over to, the whole, a newer generation from Kevin and Mark.
Right, and to keep it going and to be able to continue the arc, the storyline, all of that is really commendable, and especially for it to be sort of seamless. Although I know people who are not voice blind like me would be able to tell the difference. It's not as obvious to us that are slightly more ear stupid, I suppose. That name that I was looking for was Dan Castellaneta.
Yes.
He does the voice of Homer Simpson, I think, is what he's the most well known for. But when I found out that he was the voice of Genie instead of Robin Williams, because I was convinced that it was definitely Robin Williams in the movie In Between or in the television show that I grew up with. Like, I was convinced it had to still be Robin Williams, and it totally wasn't. But that just shows how much of an amazing actor he is to be able to do that. Been watching a lot of Star Wars Rebels lately, and then we watched The Princess and the Frog, and Jim Cummings does like a ton of voices that I thought I was I just need to make sure that we mention Jim Cummings because he does Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and Hondo Ohnaka and the voice of Rey in Princess and the Frog. And the voice in Princess and the Frog is like this Southern Cajun lightning bug, and it's so like he's talking with a Cajun accent, like it's super not Winnie the Pooh, like it's not Hondo Ohnaka. Like when you listen to Hondo Ohnaka, you can even kind of tell he's got a little bit of a Tiggery voice to him. But it's so completely different that I was like, I'm like trigger happy with IMDb whenever we're watching something. I'm always like looking up who this is and who that is, and wait, that person looks familiar. Oh, is that really that person? So seeing that it was Jim Cummings, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So it was just really cool to see all of that. And then, you know, again, I'm just not worthy. Like, I'm just so impressed at all times. There's a couple others that are pretty awesome too, and I don't want to exclude anyone, but I feel like we're almost out of time. Let's see.
Tara Strong has done a ton of different voices, and you know, she has.
A friend of mine was saying her.
Yeah.
What does she do?
She has kind of a similar style to kind of her voice that she does, because she does Timmy from the Fairly Odd Parents. She does Twilight Sparkle in My Little Pony. She does. She's done quite a few renditions of Harley Quinn in Batman media. She does Bubbles in the Powerpuff Girls. So
that's what I know her from.
Yeah. So like she kind of has like a very, very similar aesthetic in a lot of her different voices, like especially the Bubbles and Timmy and, you know, Twilight Sparkle. They have kind of, you can tell like there's a very similar cadence and tone to them. And so, you know, she's one of those where it's almost easy to like pick her out, because there's this kind of like high-pitched, bubbly voice, and it's like, oh, that sounds like Tara, you know?
Sure, yeah. And then one of my friends was actually telling me also about Nolan North. Mm-hmm. Does that sound familiar?
It does. Hold on,
I think this person who I was talking to, though, might have had a thing for, like, Batman in general, because he had mentioned Tara Strong and Nolan North, and I don't know either of them from Batman, but he was talking about Batman specifically. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it does. So let's see. Okay. So he's done quite a few different things here. He's been voicing in Lego stuff. He does Lego DC. He's done like Superman, Clark Kent, Alfred in some Lego DC stuff. There was that new Marvel's Avengers video game that was, has it come out yet? I know it was slated for release 2020. I can't remember if it's actually come out now, but he does the Iron Man Tony Stark voice there. Let's see. Okay, so he's in Young Justice. So he's done Connor Kent, Superboy, Clark Kent, Superman. So those kind of voices. So he's likely, I think, taking on the role of Superman, because it seems like that's a lot of... You can almost tell sometimes when you look at like a voice actor's IMDb, like almost when they're almost typecast, because you know they'll have a certain role that they keep like recurring and coming back to. So it's like you can look at, you know, a voice actor's IMDb and see like, oh, okay, so that's the kind of voice that they kind of do a lot of times.
Right. Was there anyone else you wanted to make sure we mentioned?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's so many. I know
there are so many. And what's so funny too is when you look at IMDb and they've got like these astronomical numbers, like 370 or 582, and I'm used to seeing like actors that have 97 things on their filmography credits. Like,
well, and part of that
sounds like a big number.
Well, I mean, and part of that is because, you know, the compensation for a lot of voice actors isn't very much. Rachel Messer is an anime voice actor who, she's done voices for One Piece. She's done voices in quite a few different other animes, and she's done some for games as well. And she had posted a video lately, ostensibly more about the whole Suzy Liu controversy that was going on YouTube that I'm not going to get into, because that's a whole different wormhole that we don't really want to go down right now. But she, in her video, she had talked about, you know, voice acting and what all it entailed, and as well as the compensation. And she said for some roles she got like $38 for doing the role. And it's like, that's just insane to think about. Okay, all that work and effort that you put into it, and you get $38. Like, it just blows your mind, because you would think that, you know, they get compensated a little more than that, but nope, they don't. They really don't. Like, maybe some big names, I'm sure some big names get compensated more for their work and their time, but, you know, a lot of, you know, the voice actors who come in and they do more minor roles, or they do like, you know, you might see listed as additional voices, you know, they really aren't getting a whole lot.
Say is so interesting to me about the Rachel Messer thing too is that what she said about how you do own your voice, but you don't own anything about the character. So you can have people commissioned to make like a rendition in their own style of whatever character it is, and you can sell that, but you can't sell anything about the character. And there can be cease and desists as well if the person you commission to do the artwork is like too good or too close to how the actual character looks. So there's really no other way to make more money off of your voice in that sense unless you do more recordings or have the ability to do a different character. And although like that's awesome, like to have that kind of talent, it can't be easy.
I mean, I remember watching the appendices for Lord of the Rings, and Andy Serkis, obviously he did a lot of the like kind of motions for Gollum, but I mean that wasn't really even the initial plan. He was hired as a voice actor, and doing the voice of Gollum, it put such a strain on his voice. They came up with this concoction of I think it had like lemon and honey and ginger, and it was like basically like a sort of a hot tea or hot toddy that they made for him, and he just like drank it by the buckets, like just trying to keep down the
juice.
That's what they call it, is Gollum juice. And so he had to just keep drinking it all the time, every day. He said his gut would literally ache because he was drinking so much of this stuff, but he had to, because otherwise his voice would just get wrecked from doing this same raspy voice just for hours and hours and hours at a time, day after day.
What I think is also really interesting too is voice actor coaches. Like, I don't know if Andy Serkis has one, but I know I watch a couple of different news guys on I watch YouTube videos because I just have subscriptions to listen to what they did the night before. But one of them, and their impressions of who's ever in the political market at the time are usually like decent, funny, hilarious, their own renditions. But I did hear one of them mentioned that he had a voice coach, and that his voice coach had told him not to do that impression because it wasn't very good or whatever. And I was just like, that's ridiculous to think that you don't even think of like voice acting, voice coaches being in that kind of a realm, but it's so important to be able to get even that point across. Like I wouldn't even know the first step on how to make my voice sound like anyone ever.
Well, I mean, they have voice coaches. I can
really sound like me today,
Yeah, I mean, they have voice coaches for singing. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense in that perspective that, you're going to someone to, try to, teach yourself to do something even better. It's just kind of, I don't know. This is probably something that, most people don't really think about that goes into voice acting, and the time and the effort and the little compensation that many of them get, that's why you can look at their IMDb's and they'll have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of roles and appearances and things, because that's how they have to get paid,
Right. Okay, so with that being said, for Geek on Fleek this week, I have decided to not do a Geek on Fleek. We have plenty of things going on in geek culture, geek news, regular culture, regular news, that I do not think it's important this week to talk about anything else, to really even talk about anything. For those who listen that are people of color, we stand with you, we are with you, as usual. And that's really all I have to say for this week for Geek on Fleek.
Yeah. Because unfortunately,
sorry.
Oh no, because unfortunately, with all the media and everything going on, it gets very overwhelming with everything. And I mean, obviously, there are people who need to see it, who need to be inundated with it. But for our geeks of color, we wanted to offer this episode this week as a moment of respite to kind of just sit back and enjoy, and we hope you did.
For a long time, we've also always talked about Peeps and Headcanons being about, like, knowing that your people are here, that we want to listen to you, that we hope you want to listen to us. And that's really what we're out here to do, is to be a little bit of respite from whatever else is going on. So, yeah, we talk nerdy to you.
And so with that, I'm Teegan.
And I'm Lindsay, and thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headcanons.